For the longest time, I wanted to make a round bottom fabric bin for the back seat of a car, and I finally did it. I'm pretty happy with the result, and the good thing is it's a reversible bin and you can switch it anywhere you like. For that, I have selected cotton fabric in 2 different prints. Once I made it, I also realized you can also use it as a general fabric basket to keep things like toys or plushies. Since it also has a strap, you can easily hang it anywhere in the home. Now let's start with fabric measurements and other supplies. For this project, we basically need 2 patterns, and one is the circular pattern and this one has a diameter of 7.25 inches. Take your own measurements, but I have the free pattern for this one in the description in case you need it. You will need 2 from this pattern, and since this is a reversible fabric bin, you will need to cut 1 from each fabric print. All the fabric I use here is pre-washed and ironed cotton fabric. Now let's move on to the next fabric measurement. You'll need 2 rectangular pieces from each fabric print, and they each measure 22.5 by 8 inches in size. Now here on, I'm going to refer to the fabric pieces from top mustard print as inner bag pieces and the one with the seashell print as the outer bag pieces. I'm also thinking of using fusible fleece for this project to give it a little steadiness and to keep its cylindrical shape. You can use fusible fleece for both inner and outer bag pieces, but I'm only going to use it for one of the layers. So I cut only 1 from the circular pattern and 1 from the rectangular pattern. Next, we are going to need a strap for hanging the bin, and I'm using webbing for that. I cut my webbing 25 inches long and it has a width of 1 inch. You can also make your own fabric strap, and we did that while we sewed the tote bag. Make sure to follow that tutorial to see how. I'm using webbing here for convenience, and I also think it goes really well with the vibe of a car. Now other than that, we also need a pair of scissors, a fabric marking pen, a measuring tape or a ruler, pins or craft clips. I strongly recommend you to have a few craft clips for this project, especially when working with circular shape areas. And finally, you will need your sewing machine with a coordinating thread color. Now let's start with the project. First, I'm going to fuse the fusible fleece to our outer bag layers. For that, place the wrong sides of the fabric pieces facing the shiny side of the fleece. Whenever you are cutting fusible fleece, try to cut them about half an inch smaller than the original pattern size. This will save you from all the sticking while ironing. I think you can see I did that, and that's why both fusible fleece look a little smaller than its fabric pieces. Now it's time to iron on top of the fabric side to fuse the 2 layers together. Usually you keep the iron on one place for a few seconds and then move on to the other. If you are not planning on using fleece for your project, you can completely skip this part. Now instead of fleece, you can use another layer of fabric in case you don't have any fusible fleece. Then you can do a little bit of quilting to keep those layers together. At this point, both fleece are properly fused, and let's move on to the next step. For this step, you only have to work with the 2 rectangular pieces of the outer and inner bags. First, place both pieces facing right side up separately and then fold each of them in half, so the right sides face each other. Make sure the margins are aligned, and you can use a couple of pins to hold the fold in place. As now I folded the outer bag piece, I'm moving on to the inner bag piece, and it's the same steps. Fold the fabric in half facing right sides together, and then use a couple of pins or clips to keep the fold. After this point, we are going to sew along the pin margin, leaving a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So one piece at a time, and I'm starting with the outer bag piece. As I always mention in my videos, Do a little back stitch at the beginning and then sew straight, leaving a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Remove the pins as you go and again do a little back stitch when you reach the end. Finally, trim all threads and follow the same steps for the inner back piece as well. Once you are done with both pieces, our next step is to attach the circular fabric pieces to these sewn rectangular pieces. Those circular fabric pieces will work as the bottom of each bag, and that will eventually make a cylindrical bin shape. 2 inner bag pieces go together separately and 2 outer bag pieces go together to make another separate fabric bin. You can place the circular fabric piece on either one of the 2 opening ends, but if your fabric print has some kind of orientation, make sure to place the fabric according to that. For example, if your fabric print has animal figures on it, make sure when the bin stands up, your print stays according to that. I hope you understand what I mean. Now start to assemble the 2 pieces for one bag, and I'm starting with the inner bag. Since this is a curvy shape, you can make things easier by marking 4 main folding points on both pieces. For the circular fabric piece, first fold it in half and mark those 2 folding points. Use a fabric marking pen. Then fold that half again, and you can now mark those 2 new points. Unfold the fabric and you'll get 4 equally spaced points along the margin. Now for the other fabric piece, fold the fabric in half and keep the seam end somewhere in the center. Now your 4 equally spaced points are going to be the seam end, the directly opposite point to the seam end, and the 2 folded ends at the both sides. Use a fabric marking pen to leave a small mark. Now you can easily align the 4 marked points in one piece with the 4 marked points on the other piece. Another important thing is make sure the right sides of the 2 fabric layers are facing each other. Now this is where craft clips come in handy rather than pins. I mean, of course you can use pins, but I personally feel clips make things much easier. Clip the 2 fabric layers along the shape and use those marked points as a guide. To be honest, I was a little nervous to make this pattern and this entire project, since this is the first time I'm making a round bottom bag or a bin, but I'm glad I did that. After you clipped all around the 2 layers, it's time to sew all the way starting at any point. Same goes with the 2 fabric pieces for the outer bag. Place the right side of the circular shape, aligning with the one of the openings in the other fabric piece, and clip it all the way. Now let's start sewing with the inner bag first. As I mentioned earlier, you'll need to sew all the way around, leaving a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Remember to do a little back stitch at the beginning to secure your stitches. Now keep in mind that instead of just sewing straight, you need to move the fabric continuously because of its shape. Remove the clips as you go, and speaking of myself, I really took my time during this step. I personally think this is the most important step in this project, and please don't mess things up by just rushing it. Now about these craft clips, I actually bought these ones mostly for this project, and I didn't have any time to do a bit of research. These were the only ones in that store, and it was only 12 clips in one pack. Also, I thought they were a little pricier too. I still bought it anyway since I had everything planned for this project. I have no complaints about the quality, but I really wish there were more clips in one pack. Please let me know which ones you are using and your thoughts on that. We are almost at the end, and when you reach the starting point, do a little back stitch to end the sewing. Finally, trim all threads. One bag is done and one more to go. Follow the same steps for the outer bag pieces as well. Because we used fusible fleece for the outer bag layers, now it has become a little steady. So you need to be extra careful while you are sewing this one. After sewing both inner and outer bags, now you can turn the right side out. But before that, there is one small step you need to follow. Take your fabric cutting scissors and make small cuts along the curved seams that we just saw. If you checked out our fabric jar cover tutorial, you'll know why we need to do this. The simple reason is to release the tension that builds in the curved seams. By doing so, it helps to retain the curvy shape once the bags turn right side out. Do the same for both bags and then you'll be ready for the next step. Our next step is to attach the strap for the bin, and for that you need to turn one of the bags right side out. I'm going to turn the outside bag right side out, and that's totally up to you. Before doing that, trim any of the remaining threads and clean any threads laying around. Now you can turn the right side out without any difficulty. Push the bag inwards, and as you can see, it already has its nice cylindrical shape. Leave the inner bag as it is, which is the wrong side out, and then like I do, place the outside bag inside of that. Push the outside bag towards the inner bag for both of them to align with each other, and especially align the two seams of the both bags. As you can understand, at this point, the right sides of the both bags are facing each other. When both bags are roughly aligned, now it's time to attach the strap. I'm going to use the seam as a guide to place the strap. Using a measuring tape or a ruler, first measure 3 inches from the seam to its right, and then again 3 inches from the seam to its left. Use a fabric marking pen. Now these are the 2 points we are going to place the 2 strap ends. I think I have mentioned this earlier, but let me show you how I usually keep the strap so it won't tangle afterwards. I make capital letter U from the strap like this, and then only insert that in between the fabric layers. Now let's start placing the strap in between the 2 bags. After you did that, first place one end of the strap at one of the marked points. I usually like to keep a small part of the strap hanging like this, just to make sure it will attach properly while sewing. Then use a pin or a clip to keep the 2 fabric layers and the strap in place. Now before moving on to the other strap, clip the seams from both layers together. After that, you can clip the other end of the strap like we did earlier. Then continue aligning the 2 margins of the bags and clip or pin it all the way around. Now everything is assembled and our next step is to sew the two layers together. But before that, we need to leave some space to turn the right side out at the end. Mark 3 to 4 inches of space, and whenever you are selecting that space, make sure you don't include any seam or strap ends. Then starting from one of the marked points, start to sew all the way around until you reach the other marked point. Now when you are sewing cylindrical or narrow spaces like this, you can simply remove the toolbox part of the sewing machine to make things easier. I don't know if all the sewing machines have this feature, but if you do, why not use it? If your sewing machine doesn't have that feature, just ignore it. It's totally optional. As I mentioned earlier, start to sew at one of the marked points and do a little back stitch at the beginning. This time I'm leaving half an inch seam allowance. Now in this project, you could have also left a space at the bottom of any of the bins to turn right side out at the end. If you did that, in this step you can sew all the way around. The only reason why I didn't do that here is this is a reversible fabric bin. That way of sewing will show the top stitching part in one way or the other, and then it won't look nice and neat at the end. But if you don't mind that, I want to mention that's another option too. Coming back to the project, when you are sewing the strap, first remove the clip and then hold the fabric layers and the strap in place while you are sewing. Once you reach the other marked point, end the sewing by doing a little back stitch to secure everything. You can finally trim all threads. We are almost at the end of our project and now start to turn the right side out using the space we left. Whenever you are turning right side out, don't push things too hard or do it in a hurry. That might damage the stitches at the opening ends. I think this is the most satisfying step out of all because now we can see everything is coming together nicely. Once both bags are turned, you can either insert the inner bag into the outer bag or outer bag into the inner bag. Pick your favorite print at this moment and just go with it. You can reverse it whenever you like. After inserting one bag into the other, hand press everything and especially around the opening end of the bin. Make sure to hand press the seams at the opening unsewn area too. You can then right away move on to top stitching all the way around the opening end, or you can first give this fabric bin a proper press before sewing everything together. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. Press it mostly along the opening end and especially keeping the unsewn seams inside while you are doing that. Now it's time to top stitch all the way around the fabric bin, enclosing the opening we left. Start to sew at any point and go all the way around, leaving a 1/4 inch or less seam allowance. I don't think at this point I need to remind you of this, but make sure to do a little back stitch at the beginning. I don't know if you noticed this earlier, but instead of attaching the strap ends equally spaced, I attached them a little closer to each other, only leaving 6 inches of space in between. And that's the reason why it hangs towards you as a bin. But if you want to make a proper fabric basket shape instead of a bin, there is only one thing you need to change. Attach the strap ends equally spaced and you are good to go. It's that simple. Now we are at the end of our project and do a little back stitch once you reach the starting point. That will secure your stitching. finally trim all threads. We are almost at the end of the summer, and that's why I chose these fall color fabrics. But you can choose 2 different Christmas fabrics and give away a few of these as holiday gifts. I know for a fact most people love their car accessories, and you'll make them happy by giving away one of these, or you are that person and you can make one for yourself. I truly hope nobody will pour drinks into this fabric bin, but if that happens, you can simply wash it and reuse it. That's the great thing about these fabric projects. I hope you liked this video, and please give it a try and let me know how it turned out. Thank you all for watching till the end, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Bye for now, and I'll join you in the next one.